Welcome to this week's BDE. We'll be covering the Cord EnterPlus deal. Elliot gets into mining. Toll Brothers flipping a data center for cash.
What the
MB
fuck, dude?
reverses on EVs.
What are you doing?
I know what he's
Northwest or Norway transitioning this weekend. Natural gas and Indonesia's Valentine's Day election.
Chuck got some feedback from
And I like Josh. I shouldn't be being an ass.
from
But I was
Josh
being,
that-
sorry, Josh. I was being an ass.
Chuck got some feedback from Josh Young that he should do a pre-read at the beginning of the episode about all the things that we're going to talk about.
A summary.
That's not how you do
That's-
podcasts.
So Chuck,
Even I know that.
Chuck,
Hold on.
Was putting on
Let's
his-
give
his-
credit where credit is due. Last week's BDE was the first one that out-downloaded Chuck Yates Needs a Job, and it was on the strength of Mr. Young, I
the
think.
Josh
Am I being
fanboys are
replaced?
pumping it. Arkansas's being replaced. That's the first time the boys have been back. Couple weeks.
Dude,
Arkansas's
yeah.
been out. I was out last
You didn't
week.
bring your hair.
I didn't bring my hair. Yeah, I'm a whole new man. I'm 10 pounds lighter.
Dude, I got a lot of feedback about last week's show about how good it was.
Really?
But there was another comment that I was, thank God, they said, Kirk, you didn't talk enough in that episode.
Lots of numbers.
It's like,
My favorite.
I know numbers, but I guess I just can't determine the difference between locations and acres.
No, my favorite comment was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
We need a whiteboard in here to just walk you through that.
It
But
was-
anyway.
It was me.
No, let's keep it mystery.
It was me, Kirk, and Chuck, and we came in here with like no plan and just like bullshitting. And after we turn off the recorder, like, man, like our show is so much less information dense without Mark here. And then someone called us out on it, like in the comments. They're like,
Totally.
"This is like way too much fluff." Yeah.
Pissed. They were pissed.
They're mad. Yeah, people are
Chuck's
mad.
the
that Mark
micro
Consol isn't on.
celebrity. The numbers guy's the nano celebrity
Yeah.
or the pico celebrity.
Look, we're only powerful as a team. We can't have you
Are
missing
you
out.
going to
Mark
like
Consol.
Wonder Twin
Yeah,
Powers?
I was thinking everyone put their fist in the middle.
I think there's some military team symbolism in Colin's new do.
Yeah,
There
dude.
we go.
All
I know
fucking
we're going to
business
talk
around
about
here.
mining today, but who's going to see the mining movie
The mining movie.
this weekend?
What?
What's the mining
Fucking
movie?
Dune Part 2 is out,
Oh.
dude. I am so been waiting for this.
I never
shit.
saw Dune Part 1, so I don't know what
I
it's
saw the
about.
original Dune,
That's-
which was great,
I
but
saw a great meme that talked about
Is it,
something about how the budget was spent way too much on worms. that was the issue.
is this something I need to watch, Dune? Do I need to put it on the list?
I mean, it's about mining, man.
Okay.
Mining for spice.
Say
So,
less.
yeah, it's
We,
great.
we
Say
have
less.
a number of pop culture videos and movies that you need to put on your list.
Okay. That's what we need to come up with, the BDE
Between
list of
M&A
things to watch.
takedowns, watch some culture.
So, all right, I'll put it. I'll watch
Issue
it.
1. Kick us off, Mark. Cord and EnterPlus.
Yeah, it's the latest in public company mergers, Bakken consolidation, $11 billion in transaction value. I think about 1.5 million undeveloped acres. The Cord CEO, Danny Brown, will be the merged company CEO. Ian Dundas, who's the CEO of EnterPlus, will stay on as an advisor to the CEO. And, you look at, I think the profile and duration of headline coverage, and maybe I don't get access to or see things that cross the news wire, but where it was broadly discussed or frequently discussed, but it seemed to disappear from the headlines pretty quickly. And one of the data points, or one of the comments in the press release that caught my attention in thinking about the recent Permian deals, is that the pro forma inventory is enhanced to 10 years at current activity levels. And I'll turn it over to you, Chuck, for a little Bakken story time.
Now, you know what this is the equivalent of deal-wise? This is when you get a friend request on Facebook from the head cheerleader in high school that you haven't talked to since graduation day, and you pull it up and she's got like 12 kids and weighs 400 pounds. It's like, oh, great. I mean, this would have been a big deal in like 2012. This is when this deal should have happened.
I feel
but-
bad for everyone posting about M&A after the Pioneer deal and the Endeavor deal. Like anything after those deals is going to look less shiny. And
No,
then you have deals like this, and it's just like,
there needs to be one company in the Bakken. I mean, you've still kind of got Continental, I think XTO, the remnants within Exxon. You got Kraken in there, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's a basin that's in decline, and I think going to brag on Kane Anderson here. We actually
what, you're
kicked
gonna
off.
brag on Kane Anderson?
Did you work there or something?
That doesn't mean I'd say nice things, but
You can find and replace Kane Anderson with Chuck.
yeah, exactly. That'd be great. No, but we in effect actually kicked off the Bakken with Bobby Lyle, and it's a great story in that literally the only reason Bobby Lyle had the Sleeping Giant field and the 50,000 acres there is it was the only asset he owned that he couldn't sell. He was way over levered. He sold everything. This was left. Came to us, wanted to drill, had a thesis of drilling horizontal wells. Too risky, too scary for us. He got some money actually out of Halliburton and went and drilled 9,000-foot laterals and basically put a glorified acid job on it. He was calling it a frack, but it was just bullhead and acid down in there. And it worked like a charm. And he was crushing it, drilling these great wells. So we backed him. We went from, I think, 300 barrels a day of production to 12,000 in like 18 months, and sold it to EnterPlus, made a fortune. The former house of Paul Van Wagenen became my house because of, in effect, that deal. But that's what kicked the Bakken off. And the crazy part of that story is the only place a 9,000-foot lateral would work with just an acid job were those 50,000 acres. We went about 5 miles away, tried the same thing. It didn't work. We said it was a mechanical failure, and we just sold. And that wound up being the acreage that Brigham picked up and wound up selling because they figured out how to put the fracks on it. The big, I'm blanking, the Norwegian.
Statoil.
There you go. So that was actually the kickoff of the Bakken.
I just want to know, in the Williston Basin, do they mine like the Canadians do? I mean, is it basically taking? Does it come out of the ground liquid, or is it?
No, you're drilling wells.
Yeah, you're.
It's not strip mining it. It's not sands.
It's not oil sands. I
don't know. They might.
To your point, there not being any inventory there as we started drilling horizontals there in 2001. And, plus it's smaller than the Permian just in general. But
it's North Dakota's Austin Chalk.
Yeah, exactly.
Chuck's the boomer consolidator meme.
One side note here. I did have the privilege of serving on a board years ago with Ian Dundas, which was a great addition to that board. He's learned a lot from him, and I think that's a good role for him post merger. Just a really, really good leader and really thoughtful analyst.
Yeah.
Did y'all see this? Sorry, I'm on Twitter. Did y'all see this video I posted of the pump jack with the ball and seat down on the bottom? Did y'all see this? The guy, my friend's the one that took the video. He's taking it, and it's a model of this pump jack at the top, and at the bottom you have a ball seat, artificial lift. And he asked the guy behind the counter, he's asking about it, and the guy behind the counter's like, yeah, and we have our own internal special parts in there. He's like, oh, what internal special parts? He's like, I can't tell you, it's proprietary. My friend's like, it's proprietary.
Strategery.
Alan Gilmer said something about, he said, yeah, that's two levels safer than proprietary and 3 levels safer than, what was the other word he said? Alan's got some funny comments on Twitter, dude. He's a funny dude.
We need, hey, Alan's standing invite to come sit in on BDE with us.
Let's
see if we can beat Josh's numbers.
If we had Alan in here, that'd be.
Dude, he invited me to his spread with the piano bar.
Oh yeah,
I saw that.
I mean,
his
so
man cave.
Yeah.
So I have to invite him back here.
That's what we should do.
Podcast from the piano bar.
We should go record, a BDE from the Drilling Info.
Dude, the piano bar.
Cave.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
I bet he plays mean.
All right.
Those mean chords.
That's our Asked Alan Gilmer. We're coming to Austin recording BDE.
Oh yeah, we are
from the man cave. All right.
Because
Sorry.
I miss his great. He had the best events, man. When he was at his prime, they threw the greatest events.
Well, he posted a picture, and it's a limo from Nape, and it was Dolly Parton
And Kenny
and,
Rogers, right?
Willie
Nelson.
And
yeah,
yeah.
no, you can't.
Willie.
You
And
don't
I
want to be in the
commented-
middle of Kenny and Dolly.
I commented and I said, "Is this real?" Because it looked like the real people. He's like, the night was real, and he's like, the young lady that hooked up with the Willie Nelson impersonator from Las Vegas also thought it was real. And I was just like, that's funny. But yeah, they went and got these Vegas impersonators to come hang out with them at Nape. But I thought it looked like them. I thought it was them. And
And it would be an Alan Gilmer thing to do. So.
yeah, for sure.
The movie maker.
The movie maker. So sorry to get derailed from the Cord deal, but
I mean, they're going to merge down to one player there. They're going to continue to cut G&A. There's not a whole lot. They say 10 years to drill, which means there's probably 5. And it is, I will say, it wouldn't be a bad thing, even though it's smaller, for an institution to own, because it is kind of your pure play oil play out there. You're not going to have natural gas gumming up the works there just because they don't really
like
have
you do in the
much there.
Permian.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
You know, this is just anecdotal, but I've been hit up by 3 EMPs this week about, hey, who do we talk to about Bitcoin mining? Because gas prices, they're just getting wrecked and looking for new revenue streams. So I think that's interesting because I don't think I've ever had it where so many EMPs are reaching out inbound. Usually it's, the last few years is teaching people about it, but now people are thinking I'm tired of selling.
There's a relevant conference coming up soon.
No, that's what Empower's going to be lit this year. Yeah. If you're not, also prices go up at midnight, which this podcast is going to come out
Gas
tomorrow.
prices,
So
gas prices are going up at midnight.
Yeah, gas prices. Yeah, you don't have that luxury of just.
You're not going to index Empower prices.
Yeah,
Gas prices.
yeah.
Okay, I'll get off my soapbox, but I'm just going to say this. You're an oil and gas company. You have cheap gas. You can actually plug in a computer and mine yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, come to Empower because I'm not trying to shill our own shit here, which I need to be better at, but it's going to be badass time. I wanted to change the name. It's Empower Energizing Bitcoin. I wanted to change it to Empower We're So Back. This year, everything's ripping, so it's going to be fun. But I think it's interesting. You just brought up, the liquids versus gas with that. Like, you're seeing a lot of these EMPs that are just getting crushed on the gas side.
We've said, in fairness to us around here, tooting our own horn. Love that expression. No, we've said you ought to be hooked up and you ought to look every day, just like you sit there and go, do we strip off the ethane, and sell it separately? You should do that every day. Do I mine Bitcoin with it, or do I sell the natural gas into the pipeline? I mean, it's the same CapEx versus cost, et cetera, decision or discussion you have on every other thing you produce.
Absolutely.
So,
We should probably get amalgamated sludge, aka Dan
I mean,
Morrison.
Question:
should.
do they have
Come
fast
on.
internet in these locations to mine Bitcoin?
Yeah, that's not a problem anymore. I used to, that's so 2018.
Just asking.
It's locations.
Oh, wait, I'm
now,
sorry. Is
not
this satellite
acres.
driven? Because I know how fast original satellite internet, you're like,
Have you used Starlink though? Starlink's fucking amazing.
how fast is it?
Very fast.
You can mine Bitcoin with Starlink.
I can take Zoom calls on the plane with Starlink. They have it on JSX. You ever flown JSX?
Fuck, I'm not rich like you guys.
It's cheaper to fly JSX than it is Southwest sometimes to Dallas. It's cheap.
Really?
Yeah, if you ever fly up to Dallas, you should be flying JSX, but they have Starlink on it, and you can stream calls up there. You're getting like 70 to 80 megs. It's crazy.
I'm just saying, when I'm fighting all these other Bitcoin miners and speed is everything, it's really the speed of your network that matters almost as much as your ASIC.
Yeah, it's actually the speed.
That's
of
my question.
Yeah.
If I'm in the middle of bum,
You don't need fast internet for Bitcoin
Almost said
mining
it.
because you're hashing and submitting your answers. Like you don't need. It's not speed doesn't help you. You need connectivity, but
so you need horsepower, but you think network speed is not relevant.
it's less important. Yep.
All right, you heard it here.
there we go.
So
All right, on to mining.
Yeah, Elliot, a
we
pretty
talked
well
about mining with Dune.
We did.
No, we did.
I already covered it. Mining's done.
Nah.
Just
Elliot,
cut it
We'll
off,
talk,
Mark.
Elliot.
Mark's not even laughing. He's just trying to get the topic going.
Mark's like, didn't y'all get enough criticism without me
Mark's
here?
like, quit interrupting me.
You know, the guys that
I'm
always give
usually
me
the
compliments
tangential
on
one.
the show are guys that probably just really like Mark.
Yeah.
And they tolerate the rest of us.
I know one of our fans.
Yes. No, that's true.
Oh my gosh.
That's
we're
how
talking
the
about
Everyone
That's
tunes
how
in
the
for
Yates
Mark. It's like, I
house-
wish everyone else would just shut the hell up so I can listen to Mark.
That's
All right,
how
go,
the
Mark.
Yates household operates. But anyway.
So Elliot, well-known activist, announced last week. I saw a summary in Twitter since I don't subscribe to the source, which is FT. They're rolling out a $1 billion metals and mining war chest known as Hyperion. Objectives are underfinanced mine investments and possible public company buyouts. And as we've talked about in our mining detours over the past several months and couple of years, we're looking at a global capacity pinch in a lot of the base metals and other minerals that implies that you'll need a multiple of current capacity, not fractions in terms of growth, if we're going to get to the nirvana
It's
state,
huge.
not nirvana state that many envision. It's big. So looking at, and we've talked about this before as well, but these are nifty little comparatives. I found a new favorite tool called Companies Market Cap, and it's the largest mining companies, which happen to number 223 in this snapshot. Their total market cap, BHP at the top at 144 billion. The total market cap of these 223 mining related companies, some are precious metals, et cetera, is 1.54 trillion. Today, Apple boasts a market cap of 2.8. And you look at the critical dependencies on everything that Apple does and all of its peers on all of the commodities produced and precious metals produced by these companies and others, it seems to suggest some opportunity. Obviously,
It seems to, but we've been talking about that for years, you know? Like, I wouldn't want to invest in any of these mining companies just because it always seems like the thesis always seems sound. But it is crazy. Like, I was at Exxon's campus, me and Chuck were a while back, and you see how big that company is. And it's hard to just kind of fathom how big those companies are. But then you look at Apple's market cap. What'd you say Apple's market cap was?
2.8 trillion.
2.8 trillion. Exxon is 415 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Like it you can't even wrap your head around.
It's kind of analogous.
Yeah, you can't even wrap your head around how much bigger Apple is from a market cap standpoint than Exxon. When you go to Exxon's campus and you just like see how big of an operation that is, and then to just think that Apple is literally several times bigger than it.
I think when we looked at it from, well, you could buy all these top 223 with a little more than half of Apple's market cap, and you'd have a lot left over to buy years of supply and copper, et cetera, in terms of money left over.
Yeah.
I mean, you might not be able to reach the scale of an Apple, but basically what this story is representing is people are seeing this huge opportunity, because if the world continues to go electric and there's need all these, the energy transition needs all these metals, common metals, copper being number one, and all these precious metals. There's a few great mining companies, having worked for one for a brief period of time. But Elliot's not alone. They've jumped in. There's Orion Resource Partners, Appian Capital, and then, interestingly enough, Saudi Arabia has jumped in. They established a joint venture last year called Manara Minerals. So everyone's sort of seeing that, let's go after the source. I remember when I was working for a computer company that flat screens, when flat screens started becoming, hey, not only flat screens, but we could make these TVs, and silicon became a commodity that all of us looked at. In fact, my company, we set up a joint venture to go actually buy that commodity directly and sell it to the partners that actually made the product, and then we'd buy it from them. This seems like just another one of those plays where it's like, we need to go to what is the most expensive material in the BOM of these cars. It's going to be, it's the precious metals. Well, let's go make sure that we have access to those metals.
Of these cars?
Bill of materials, or no, not BOM.
Acronym.
I was sorry, that's old speak, but I was just thinking about, if these are the most sought out materials and the most expensive materials, let's go get them.
I just thought you were taking a jab at EVs. He said in the bombs of these cars. I was like,
there was a double entendre in there. Wow.
That's where my mind went. I was like, damn, he's talking about shit about EVs.
Speaking of EVs, who's Mercedes? Was it Mercedes?
Mercedes, yeah. Mercedes in 2021 puts out an estimate that 50% of their new sales will be EVs by the year 2025. So it's coming up here in a year. And they just readjusted that target to say, actually, that's going to happen by 2030. And so moving the goalpost here.
It was 100% by 2030. Everything they make was 100%.
And the original?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that. Yeah, I just saw the 50% number.
And there was a story that came out
with the
today.
caveat, as markets allow.
Story today about both Lucid,
seriously,
Lucid and Rivian. Before they were saying they raised all this capital, and they're like, well, we can't build fast enough, and they're learning how to manufacture quickly at scale, and they're running to all the same problems that all these, the Fords of the world of, like, we've done this for years, get out of the way, but they're finally starting to figure out how to manufacture these things, and now they can't find customers. So the market's gone soft, and what Rivian came out and said is that interest rates are high, and there's economic uncertainty, and so they're unable to offload their cars. But unlike the Mercedes-Benz, they can go to the ICE vehicles and be okay.
What's what Rivian do? Yeah, it's interesting because it is like Tesla adoption in Houston's material. Like, I see
very material. Looks
Teslas everywhere. I mean, I'm driving down I-10, and I would say that 1 out of every 5, 6 cars, it's less than, like, seems like it's less than 10 sometimes on stretches of the highway where you see a Tesla. So what's clear to me is that Tesla's head and shoulders above the rest of the competition when it comes to EVs. And so you're kind of seeing this, I think you're seeing this separation where it's like, yeah, I'll have a Tesla, but I'm not really interested in any other EV from any other manufacturer, whether it's Mercedes or Rivian or, F-150 Lightning's getting crushed. So I think that there does need to be some separation in Tesla from the rest of the pack. But yeah,
so comparing the 50 or calibrating the 50% goal to global new car share of EVs in Europe, where Mercedes-Benz is located, that was 8% of total global new car sales last year were EVs, 13% in Europe. Yeah. It's a pretty long putt, 50% in these rather approaching the end of the runway deadlines. Or
what? Yesterday I had an encyclopedia busted out, and I'm just reading a bunch of random shit. And one of the chapters was on internal combustion engines, and it had a little section on Rudolph Diesel. And Rudolph Diesel was such a fucking Chad. So
do you know there's some like huge mystery around this guy too?
No, I didn't know.
Yeah,
that.
there's some good, like, great stories about him.
I imagine. But
New World
gasoline engine comes out. Dude sees that, hey, people in rural areas need a more energy efficient engine. Invents the diesel engine, has a higher compression ratio than gasoline, runs off of peanut oil, so people could, boil their own peanut oil and run off of it. And then just thinking, like, how much more efficient diesel engines are than gas engines. And Europe's historically always had high percentages of diesel vehicles, which are super fuel efficient. And we just never did that in America because everyone always thought of diesel as being dirty and clunky. And I always think about that. It's like, why are we not running more diesel engines in cars? Why are we not running more plug-in hybrids? Can you run plug-in hybrids with diesels instead of, running it simultaneously with a gasoline car? I don't know. But
Back in 2000, call it 17 and 18, when I was fundraising Energy Fund 8, that was all the rage. Tesla was out. There are not going to be any internal combustion engines on the road in 5 years. And I used to always give this speech where I would get up there and read these headlines about, electric cars set to take over, electric cars, women find sexy, just all these headline stuff. And then I would go through the speech about how we got 300 million cars in the United States, how long they stay on the road forever. I mean, 92% of cars are on the road 10 years later. I ran through all this, and I would basically say, nothing's going to happen, for whatever, 20, 30 years. And I'd get the polite applause, and then I'd go, oh, by the way, those headlines I read to you, they were from the New York Times, 1917, 1918, and 1919. This is nothing new, guys.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like right now, I've got a 2015 Toyota Tundra. It's got 150,000 miles on it. Thing runs just as good as ever. And, it's coming up on, what is it, 9? It's 9 years old now. And it's paid off. And if I wanted to go trade in on a Tesla with interest rates where they're at, I'm just looking at it doesn't make sense from an economic perspective. I'm like, why would I want to go buy a new car in the first place and then a expensive EV on top of it? And so, I think EVs have a place in the world. I think that they're cool cars, but and you can go back and find BDE episodes from back in the day, or even before BDE, when it was me and Rob doing the roundup. We're just talking about these 2021 predictions are just fucking crazy. Actually, I should go to Clyde Pro and search up Mercedes and see if we covered that story back then, because all these goals and predictions that came out during the zero interest rate phenomenon of 2020 and 2021. I want a tracker for it. We should build a tracker on DW's website.
Well, and let's go all the way back to the late 90s, because I think there's a classic Goldman Sachs research report that said by the year 2015 or something, 50% of all cars would be hybrids. And I don't think hybrids ever
Didn't make it.
2% of the market.
There is hope for an inflection in the change in consumer choice for EV adoption. If you listen to Rogan's podcast with a guy who absolutely hates modern stuff, who was actually born in Dearborn, Michigan, Kid Rock. He said, I love the Cybertruck. I hate the fact that I love it, but I love it. And then Rogan told the story of him shooting the 80-pound bow into the side of the Cybertruck, and it barely made a scratch. It bounced, it flattened the broadhead.
Nice. Well, my favorite EV story is, so I drove a Tesla X for 6 years, and one night
was this offsetting the Jet?
This was offsetting the Jet. I also had a Hummer at the time.
Yeah, there you go.
So whatever
you have a big watch too.
I was talking to, I kind of had the right tool.
Chuck has the biggest watch in the room right now.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. So anyway, one night I just forgot to plug in my car. So I get in my car, and I live 25 miles from the office, right? So I'm driving in, and I've got 80 miles left. I've got a meeting in the Woodlands later that afternoon, then a kid's soccer game, and I'm just like, oh, man. So I'm sitting there, and this is when the chargers at Whole Foods would maybe charge 10 miles an hour.
Unless my Raptor was parking the spot.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm driving along, and I finally can't figure it out. So I just drive into the office, and I go to my assistant. I go, Stacy, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to drive to the supercharger north of town. It's about 12 miles from here. It's going to take you about an hour and a half to charge my Tesla and bring it back. And she goes, man, you've officially become a prick.
Another task for Clyde Pro is to find out how many times
we've told
that story. Hey, do you know who the largest EV company is right now?
The largest
Or they're
EV
the top
company?
selling EV maker.
Rivion's
Chinese.
outselling Tesla right now.
It's Chinese.
You're right. You know the name of them?
It's 3 letters, right?
BYD.
BYD.
Bring your anyway.
Bring your what?
But I'll tell you what got me interested in BYD is they just announced a car that sort of rivals the Ferraris of the world, Ferraris and Lamborghinis. It's the most expensive car for them, It's 1.68 million won or $233,000. And it's called the Yang Wang U9. And it's only being sold in China.
Yang Wang U9.
Nice.
Yang Wang U9.
Dang.
I'm like, it looks
That's
pretty damn
almost
cool.
as expensive as your car. Kurt.
Let me see. Yang
It's hard to-
Wang.
U9. It
Is it
looks pretty
good looking?
badass. You can only get it in
Jacob
China, though.
throw one up.
This does look sick. Jacob's gonna have to throw this up on
Let me see.
the screen.
Oh, dude.
I mean, it's pretty hot.
Oh, I'm all over that.
Dude, you look so good getting in and out.
I would. Gosh.
Think about your girlfriend.
Old-
She'd never allow you to drive it without her in it.
I could imagine.
Yeah,
Old,
kinda-
old
it's
Ridge
kinda got
Chuck would've
like-
rocked it.
Ferrari and
Now I drive a
Bugatti.
Hyundai.
Like if a Ferrari or a Corvette had a baby with a Bugatti.
That's it. That's a great
Nice.
expression.
What was it? The U9. What's the company's name again?
BYD.
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 But
BYD, BED, or BDE.
That's the
B-
natural
I know.
sponsor. We'll
That's-
we'll,
yeah.
We'll
Send us
stop
a-
talking about it. Send us one of those.
Send us a
We'll
car.
Share it.
they market
stop
their
talking
luxury models under the brand of Yang Wang and Feng Cheng Bao.
Ooh.
Do you want a Feng Cheng Bao or Yang Wang?
You sound Chinese.
I like
Either
that.
one, man. If it looked that cool, I don't care what it's called.
With some
Badass.
plum sauce. That'd be great.
That is pretty cool.
I am going to. Well, it's Japanese, but you know.
What's
Yeah,
the?
it's
Can
the
we
same
import Chinese cars? Like, I wonder if anyone with enough resources can.
Oh, I'm sure
pull that over.
there's going
Big
to be a
sellers in
few.
Europe.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet Hunter Biden could get us one.
Great. Now our show's going to be.
Yeah,
freaking
yeah.
We just got flagged on
canceled.
YouTube. Thanks, Chuck.
Yeah, sorry
God,
about
fucking
that.
pack it up, guys.
All
All right.
Crazy story. I actually like this one, and I'm going to steal your thunder and tell it, Mark. But Toll Brothers, they build luxury houses. I'll steal your joke, depending on what you think luxury means. But they had some land in Virginia. They were going to build houses on it, and a data center developer came along and paid them $181 million for this. And so Toll Brothers said it was such a good offer, they just had to take it. So they made like $175 million on this one deal. So crazy to think the dirt actually matters that much for a data center. And then, but isn't that where Dominion's servicing people and saying they can't take more data centers, which I'm sure they check
Directionally.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just buying an option.
Let the buyer beware.
For
Who
a 31,
cares who
for
paid
a
for it?
31x pre-tax multiple by my calculation.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you're in real estate, of course you're selling. If somebody comes in and says, "I'm going to pay a multiple of what it's listed for,
Right.
or what you think you're going to turn it into," I want to know who bought it. Do we have any of that data?
It wasn't this fallow tract of land either, because Toll Brothers said in their earnings call, and this just came out of a Bloomberg screenshot from a tweet that I saw, the comments from, I guess, the Q&A on this, they were in motion with permitting construction approvals already. So it's, I don't know how far down the road. I'm not a home builder expert in terms of what that takes, and I guess it varies location to location, but this was not just some option piece of land that they had.
Mm.
And so is a data center developer or operator, reaching some level of urgency that makes them come in and, as the CEO of Toll Brothers said on the call, came along and made us an offer that we couldn't refuse. And is it really a one-off? And so where's this land see this type of frothy activity where you've got intended purpose and somebody comes along and says, we got to have this, price is really not.
I'm curious why
I got two initials
issue.
for a while. DC, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you want to be near the capital with data centers.
it could be. Yeah.
Where are they going to plug it in?
I know, because as we've reported here many times, Dominion is supposedly telling data center customers.
I mean, you already have the largest subset of data centers in the area already.
Yeah.
Is this maybe building I mean, unless they're going to shut some down, or maybe, I mean, because one of the problems with existing data centers is not only the power coming in and out, having enough, is cooling down and all the water use of, especially these higher performing NVIDIA chips. So maybe one of the problems with the existing data centers is you can't just pull out these server racks and put in higher performing GPUs, because the power and the actual data center design itself is, you can't do it. So maybe this is a way to reallocate power. I don't know. It'd be interesting to find out.
Or we can just run an extension cord from North Dakota.
Or that's John Arnold's new company. Yeah.
I saw something, and you guys know much, the CPU to GPU multiple of power consumption is like 4 to 5.
Oh, yeah.
It's big.
It's huge.
And the price difference is huge too. Because I used to buy GPUs at said computer company I worked for.
Yeah, but also, I mean, just the
YED? LEAD? Backwards?
That's something like that.
Yeah.
Trying to find.
The land in question is 19508 Freedom Trail Road in Ashburn, Loudoun County, and was purchased from home builder Toll Brothers by J.K. Land Holdings.
Loudoun County, they've
108
been in the news
acres
a lot.
Yes,
for
they have.
$180 million. That's crazy.
We're going to steer clear of that.
Do you think that guy got a
Subject
commission,
matter.
a big commission for selling that thing? Anyway.
I was going to say also that, I mean, CPUs and GPUs aren't apples to apples.
No, they're not.
Right? And so,
Calculation versus
Yeah.
estimation.
And so makes sense that GPU is going to take more energy, but
just the order of magnitude.
And
Step
everything about
up and-
GPUs is, I mean, the memory is very special graphics memory, and it's super expensive. And
You know
every
what's
time
funny?
NVIDIA designs a new ASIC, they design a specific type of memory to go with that ASIC, and that's a nightmare.
It's,
well, you know
it's
what's funny is that's what you're going to see more ASICs come on to the market. Actually, I was talking to some VC, and he's like, yeah, we invested in this tech company. They're creating something that's called an ASIC that's like a GPU, but it's only meant for artificial intelligence. I was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, it's an ASIC? He's like, oh, how'd you know what an ASIC is? I'm like, dog, we use them for Bitcoin mining. Like, it's just...
Investors are always smarter than you. I mean, that's just the way you got to be careful about it.
But so you'll see different technologies and ASICs come out on the market too that are more energy efficient for, specific things like language models.
But
or
we should talk
whatever
about
it is.
this, and I know we're underprepared today, but the amount of water.
When does that ever stop us?
it's you and me,
Yeah,
but
go
Mark's
ahead.
here.
Mark's
here.
here,
Wait a minute,
that's
let's-
true.
Is the amount of water use. Like all these big data companies are underreporting or not reporting or haven't highlighted how much water they need to cool off all their data centers. So that's something we should at least
Do you have any
investigate.
metrics?
I saw an
'cause
article.
most
Metrics. Yeah, I can make shit up. Let's make some shit up.
Acres, locations.
Swimming pools. How many
Acres.
swimming
This is
pools?
acres. Acres of water
Well,
in right locations.
like most Bitcoin miners are air cooled, so they don't use water cooling.
Oh, that's changing.
But the actual data centers probably use a
Tech
lot
bro
more
throwdown.
liquid
Nah,
cooling.
I mean,
Immersion cooling fucking sucks. Like in terms of operations, it's just
it does suck,
It's
but
difficult.
it definitely works.
yeah, it works for sure. On this note, though, while we're on this topic, I don't know if y'all saw this or not, but the U.S. Department of Energy put out a notice to all Bitcoin miners that they had to report where they're located, what their energy
Of course
usage
they
was,
do.
and it was kind of big news. It's funny because like all the oil and gas guys are laughing on Twitter, like, "Oh, you have to do EIA reporting," like, making fun of them. And I was like, dude, are we bootlickers now? We want more federal oversight? Like, what the fuck? But anyways, I want to give a shout out to my friend Dennis with the Satoshi Action Fund and the Texas Blockchain Council fought it in partnership with Riot Blockchain and got a restraining order placed and ultimately paused the reporting. So I thought that was really interesting to see that happen. So
I can't even see what their justification is for causing that reporting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's always the environment or kids, right?
Mhm.
That's always the basis of everything the government needs to do.
Well, it's funny because like I had this lady in my mentions the other day, and she's like, "Oh, well, what do you think about, Riot?" And apparently, she's leading this whole effort to protest Riot because Riot has a data center or a mining center right next to someone's house. And first off, like I have no sympathy if you're out in the country and infrastructure is being built by you. Like this is like rule number one. It's like if you enjoy the view, you better own the land, right? Same fucking concept. If you don't want something built right next to your house, you better buy the land next to it. And not saying that you shouldn't be a good operator and take care of your neighbors, but NIMBYism is the worst thing of all time. And it's kind of embarrassing when it happens to people in rural communities. Like this one time we're drilling for Berry Petroleum and we're drilling in Gardendale, Texas, which is just north of Midland. And it's not an official city. It's just where some people put some double wides and then they started building neighborhoods and like it's a little city, but it's not officially incorporated. And we're drilling wells right in between people's houses. I mean, their houses were right on the side of our reserve pits. And, we try to be good neighbors and good operators. Like we didn't trip pipe at nighttime, pretty much stopped our operations at nighttime so people could sleep. And, like, don't get me wrong. I know it sucks, but it's like, hey, don't fucking move out to the country in a place where infrastructure is being built. You literally live in Midland, Texas.
How do you know that though? I mean, how do you know if
You don't.
infrastructure is being built?
You don't,
never
but
do.
that's a risk. That's what I'm saying. Hey, if you don't want any neighbors, buy fucking 200 acres and put your house right in the middle of it so that you got a buffer. But if you buy a 5-acre plot and someone builds something right next door to you, tough shit. So, having a little bit of accountability and ownership, like I don't feel bad for people. So zero sympathy from Frack Slap on that front.
All right.
Just quiet
This
after-
week in natural gas.
Couple of items. This is really an ode to Kirk's newfound affinity for nat gas topical material, which is great.
Yeah.
topical.
Since it was
material.
my first choice in the
Sound like you're selling
Energy Czar
some
draft
lotion
more than
or
2 years
something.
ago.
Dude, you and I are kindred, man.
Pakistani government approved the start of construction of the first 80-kilometer segment of a total length 800-kilometer pipeline to connect to Iran.
Okay.
And so to say that there's not a tremendous number of hurdles, not the least of which is what does Iran look like from a pariah state or sanction standpoint, looking out next year, next 5 years, the next decade, probably a pretty low risk that this actually gets done. But I think it's representative or symbolic of, and we've talked quite a bit about Pakistan, including their election last week. They had trouble, as you recall, securing a single LNG cargo in the energy crisis of 22-23. First response to that was to quadruple their coal-fired generation over time. And now you look at kind of the reality of the pivot to natural gas and where does it source?
Mm-hmm.
This all kind of ties into the theme of the U.S. pause on LNG. What are we doing? Doesn't really affect anything today or in the queue to essentially double LNG export capacity, but what does it mean for where does market share go in the longer term post 2030? So,
Well, and this flies right in the face of everything we heard from U.S. government officials during the pause we're taking at looking at LNG export is, well, the market doesn't need this. Well, great. There we go. Let's hand the Iranians more hard currency.
and the market might not, but you look at the the players involved here, Iran and Pakistan, you've got a nuclear power and a society and a Islamic Republic that is very different in its its doctrine.
And as we saw in Europe, providing natural gas to people can be used as a weapon. It was used as a big weapon by the Russians. So I hate to let that take hold when Toby Rice is happy to ship them LNG.
And we're not saying that, we're continuing to operate on the assumption that the U.S. LNG players, like every other provider, an investor of risk capital, is, going to let largely market factors decide whether or not to build. Not that we won't or couldn't overbuild, but I think countries that are in deficit for natural gas are telling you that they're looking out long term and saying, I've got to find something more secure.
Pakistan calling.
FBI is telling us to shut off the podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the other piece under this, and somewhat in the same theme, is that the Qataris announced last week they're adding.
Mark has no
no
fucking sense of humor. Does not give a shit about us. Continue on, Mark.
He said QAnon earlier. Or was that Q&A? I couldn't figure it out. All right. Sorry.
I said Q
We'll
and
have 3
percent
downloads this week.
Now, the Qataris have announced that they're adding another 16 million tons of LNG capacity by 2030 against a current baseline capacity of 142 million metric tons. Again, 2030 and beyond. And we talk about this, kind of hit pause button while countries are showing that they're wanting to continue to hit play. Longer term, they see the structural market reality based upon where they think demand's going to go. So we're going to get out there as a first mover or one of the first movers and thinking about longer term that there's a pretty growthy horizon for LNG. They may be wrong, but
yeah,
there's no hesitation to try and capture what I think is going to be a fairly robust market share game going out beyond 2030.
I agree. I mean, I don't see LNG slowing down. So
not at all.
I mean, it is kind of cool, like when you think about it, that we can literally liquefy natural gas and just ship it anywhere in the world. I mean, that's pretty fucking sweet.
I mean, this is going to be Collide is going to be so awesome.
We ship it
when it gets more and more data. But in 10 years, if we're still doing the show after we sign these really big deals with digital wildcatters, because we have millions and millions and millions of users,
we could go back and Collide and see me saying that 3 years ago when I signed this really big deal with digital wildcatters.
You are its lead investor. Is that what you mean? You didn't know that instead of getting paid, you're paying.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is to look at market share. Like, what's going to happen to United States on an export basis, and will these sort of long-term contracts that the Qataris. Once some of these plants get built, Scotland's about to shut down their sort of last refinery, partly because it's not run very well and it's been losing money, but Scotland's starting to import more and more. It'll be interesting to see like who's going to win long term. And that will always change. You always have the ability to get in there with a lower price, but some of these countries are signing 30-year deals, as we've talked about before.
If it was truly about the environment, the Marshall Plan of the current time would be for the United States and Europe to finance cheap LNG infrastructure all throughout the world, and let's just be done with coal. I mean, that
right.
If it truly is just about the environment, that could be a rational step to take. I'm not sure I would do it, but I'm just saying you could make that case. So,
yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of just being an energy maximalist, like I don't like bashing on coal anymore, to be honest.
I'm with you because I was just thinking this, like, what do you think the coal people listening that are pro coal?
No, I know
When
what they
we're-
think. I know what they think
Do they
because
even
no,
have
I
the-
know what they think because I'm at Toby Rice's house one day and I'm up until like 3:00 in the morning drinking whiskey with them. Wake up at 6:00 to get on a plane to come back home, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna pass out. Like, I don't drink a lot, and I definitely don't drink whiskey. But when I'm with Toby, he likes drinking whiskey, so I'll drink whiskey with him. Get on this plane at 7:00 in the morning, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pass out, take a nap. Well, the guy that I'm sitting next to is a congressman for some district in West Virginia. And we saw that whole plane had a fucking 4-hour energy talk from me and this dude. And like, I got so much perspective from that talk because he was one of those guys that is pro coal. He's like, we did everything that they asked, you know. We cleaned up our coal plants, you know, clean coal. Yep. He's like, and they still attack us. He's like, so I don't agree with Toby's messaging when, you know, it's natural gas versus coal. He's like, you guys can win on that. He's like, but they're going to come for natural gas. He's like, so it actually changed my perception on that a little bit because I did meet someone that came from the coal industry. And if we keep going down that path of just propping up natural gas because it's displacing coal, well, next thing is
well, you know what I will say? I will look at the camera and say, West Virginia, I'm sorry I talked bad about coal. I didn't even know y'all had the internet and had YouTube and could watch this. So I'm really sorry.
Wow.
damn.
So one thing to interject, and I'm exactly where you are on coal, and that is really well illustrated. If you watch Scott Tinker's Switch On from a couple of years ago, he does these full feature, high production value, world traveling energy investigations. And one of the segments in Switch On is about Vietnam. Vietnam is overwhelmingly coal fired, and they have a huge domestic endowment of coal. And the Vietnam segment was on meeting with people in the, you know, human health and welfare and public interest and all the recognized problems of unabated coal burning or unmitigated coal burning. But the trade-off was just about everybody on the street said, you know, we recognize that is a trade-off, but the trade-off to not continue to plow ahead and grow based on being coal powered is not one we're willing to take because the standard of living is just growing by leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that, you know, the realistic displacement of coal by natural gas internationally has a huge efficiency and cost advantage to overcome that accrues to coal. And, you know, countries are just not going to, okay, we get an emissions improvement. There's going to be a real economic hurdle to overcome. Arjun Murthy's talked about this quite a bit. And I thought about it when I first thought, well, we can just displace coal worldwide and solve the emissions problem. It's not, you know, it's not that simple.
The same thing I say to renewable folks. They're like, oh, well, LNG is going to keep, you know, these countries from getting on renewables. It's like, if renewables are better,
right,
from an economic perspective,
they'll do it.
They'll do it. Yeah. And it's the same thing with coal and natural gas. It's like, hey, they're going to pick coal if coal is the cheaper and more efficient method to doing that. And
it's where do the additions come from and what makes sense. But, you know, in many countries around the world, to have a functioning natural gas grid, you got to build the infrastructure.
Yeah.
So
no, 100%. Yeah.
Huge capital up front.
Yeah. I mean, we really, you know, when everyone talks about, oh, well, they're building pipelines, like, I don't think that the average American realize how many pipelines are in the United States. I mean, it's crazy just the veins that are running through this country, right?
Just look at a map.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it really is incredible. Like, it's something that Jacob should pull up a map of, you know, natural gas pipelines. And that's just
pull up pipelines that are older than 50 years.
Yeah.
I mean, even that's a crazy looking map too.
And so that's a century almost of building infrastructure. And so none of these conversations are that simple is what it boils down to.
Always.
And poorly operated, you have fugitive methane emission issues that kind of cancel out.
Yeah. 100%.
All right, quick close on what we've been doing on BDE is at the end of each episode running a quick summary of an election in a country. This is the year of the election. 2 billion people are estimated to be voting on the planet. 7 of the 10 largest democracies are having elections this year. A lot of geopolitical important countries like Great Britain, etc., are having their elections. So we've gone through various, we've talked about Taiwan, we talked about Pakistan last week. This week is going to be a little bit of good news when it comes, because we've been pointing out the problems, AI, corruption. This is a little bit of good news. Indonesia on Valentine's Day of 2024 had their election. They're the 3rd largest democracy on the planet. They're the largest Muslim majority democracy on the planet. They wound up having almost 65% voter turnout for an election that by all reports had a little bit of hint of corruption, but not much. So the good news was we seem to have a legitimate election. Everybody's accepted. The losers accepted. Official tallies will be out next month. But what you had happen, and by the way, this guy has literally one of the coolest names. So Joko Widodo, I think is how you pronounce it, was the 2-term serving president.
Does
So
he drive
funny.
a Yokokawa?
He's termed out, so he couldn't run. His nickname is Jokowi.
Jokowi.
Jokowi. And so anyway, Jokowi couldn't run again, but the 72-year-old defense minister, Prabowo Subianto.
Do you know who that
Again,
is, Mark?
Can't do this.
I just love Chuck. I love Chuck pronouncing these names.
I love the fact that people in West Virginia are now making fun of me for that. But anyway, he won with what appears to be about 60% of the vote. And the only real controversy that happened is his running mate is the 36-year-old son of Jokowi. And the reason that's controversial is 40 is the minimum age, but the Indonesian Constitutional Court, who is headed by Jokowi's brother-in-law, ruled that it was okay that the son was vice
You
president.
can't make this up.
There were also some lower court suggested delays in the race, but an appeals court overturned it. But outside of that, this is pretty impressive because there are literally like hundreds of islands that make up Indonesia. There was some rain, but you had 65% turnout. Everybody worldwide seems to be accepting the election. So we had an election in a growing democracy, which is always good to see. The betting is that Indonesian policy towards China and America is going to stay the same. They're going to play both of us off each other and not really take a side. So,
And in related news, part of his campaign platform planks will be adopted. Southwest is adding Indonesia, Jakarta to the global route map, so Chuck will be able to visit.
nice. There we go. Perfect. May not come back, but
All right, guys.
So I'll exhaust my working knowledge of Bahasa and say terima kasih, which means thank you.
there we go.
Well, let me just caveat one thing. Democracies are short-lived and end violently, so I'm not sure I'm necessarily celebrating the democracy because we are a republic, by the way. But second, I wanted to ask you a question. You said 2 billion people are voting?
Potentially
Potentially.
worldwide.
How many of those people are voting twice?
And how many of them are actually alive?
And how many dead are voting? Oh, but no. Mark's not laughing.
But
we gotta
laughing.
wrap this show up.
Yeah.
We're getting long in the tooth here. I heard you guys
The Josh
last week
Young
went like,
effect,
yeah, an hour and a half last
He was
time. You didn't have
pissed.
someone here to sit you guys.
It's
Gotta
just been
stop.
so long.
Gotta stop. I know, dude.
It's good to see you, bro.
Markinsaw just had no humor today. He's
Arkansas.
like straight to business.
I was on a 6:20 flight this morning.
straight
so I
straight
was-
facts.
after
just the facts.
3 hours of sleep.
Couldn't crack a smile from Mark. Tough crowd today. But hopefully you guys laughed. We'll be back next week. If you like the show, please share it. Love when we see you guys sharing it on Twitter and LinkedIn. It helps a ton. So thank you for doing that. And we'll catch you
We'll
on the
see
next
you in
one.
Midland on Thursday.
Yeah,
for
we'll be
Energy
in
Tech
Midland
Night.
Energy
Yeah.
Tech Night.